So yes, thank you all for joining me for today's masterclass today webinar, which is I think is going to be on updates to CoolCare and an open Q&A for anyone to ask any questions on CoolCare as well. So as you all know, I'm sure you're all aware, CoolCare is here to make operating your care home easier, more efficient, and more profitable, as always. And for this webinar, say as a Q&A, it's going to be an open Q&A for you to ask any questions you've got on the system. And to do that, you can use Zoom on there to have the Q&A option. You should be able to find that on Zoom itself, where you can then ask any questions you've got, and I'll be able to pick them up as we go through the session if anyone does say for any questions anyone might have. But to start with, as you're all thinking up questions and think stuff you want to ask about, I'm going to show off a few recent changes to CoolCare, just a couple of things that have changed in some recent updates. Show you a few new functions on CoolCare that we have. So I'm going to swap over to my demo database just to do that. And it is just my demo system, no actual live data there, all fictional for the purposes of demonstration. So if I share my screen there, swap it over, I should be able to see my demo sites now. So I've got three little changes to show you on this little on these updates today that happened, been implemented for a week or two now, I believe, on there. The first one being to do with users and logins. So when you log into CoolCare, as I'm sure you're all aware, it will then pick a home for you, that it defaults to when you first log into the system. And previously, you weren't able to change this. It would always just be the same home. It would log you into every time, and you'd have to then change that manually if you wanted to look at a different one, right off the bat. So even if your default home was a different one, you'd still have to, log into one of them, and then it would change to the other one from there. Now you can update that for users themselves in the Manage Users section. When you're either creating a new user or an existing user you've got, you can go to their home access, and you can now choose which one is their default home. So out of the homes they have access to on CoolCare, you can choose which one will be their default that it initially logs them into when they do log into the system. That way they don't have to change the home every time they log in. It's just selected for them automatically. So if I say mine's currently onto my home here, I can change it to this one by just changing it on here, clicking set as default home, which will update that in there. I can then update that home access in there. And if I log out of CoolCare and then log back in, we should notice that if I log in there, it has gone to that block rotor home, the one that I set it as the default in there. And so that way I don't have to worry about changing it to something else every time I log in. It's just there automatically. Nice bit of convenience to help you out with that. And that can be updated for users at any time. So anyone that has access to multiple homes, whichever one is the most important to them, that can be set as their default home when they log into the system. Like I say, that's done for any existing users you've got, or you can do it for a brand new user as you're setting them up on the system as well. You'll have, choose which homes they have access to and which one will be the default home you can choose when you're setting it up there. That's, like I say, just saves a little bit of time, a little headache for anyone that might be, say, accessing multiple homes on CoolCare. The one that's most important to them can be accessed right away as soon as they log in. So that's our first little feature that's been updated. We're going to switch back to my home now. There we are. The next one is a little addition to the rotor, specifically on the live rotor, one of the staff section there. And the change comes, nothing to actually how anything works on here, but when you go to click into a shift, you might find something new on here. Alongside all the details of our staff members that are able to do this shift, you can see there their name, details if this is their main role, if they're pool staff, if they're bank staff, and a new column here, hours assigned, which, as the little I says there, if you hover over it, it is the total hours assigned for the last 7 days across all positions from all homes, which means you can see how many hours a staff member has been assigned to onto the rotor just by looking at them on the shift here. So we know how many hours someone's done previously on there to then see who we might want to do that shift based on, who's got more hours than other people in there. As I say, it's just a way of seeing some hours as previous hours assigned as just for the past week. So it's not tied to their contracted hours or anything like that. It's just there to say this is a number of hours that this person has been assigned to do in the past week. And you can then see that alongside the rest of the detail to choose who would be doing that shift on there. So that's all it is. If I were to assign Melissa to this shift here, and then go to another shift later that week, we should see that there, that hours then go up to 24. And it's based on, say, the last week from the date of that shift, essentially. So if I look at it from let's say this shift's on 24th, that means it's looking back to the 17th to see what hours have worked between those dates. That's, yeah, just that sort of thing. When you're looking at shifts to see who would want to do them based on the hours they've had recently in there. So that's again our second little change on the rotor there. And then our third and final change made to update recently is to do with our residents, specifically on our resident records to do with the billing side of things. So if I go into any residents on CoolCare and into the fee contracts, on our fee contracts in CoolCare, you may already be aware that you can send out invoices to anyone that would need to send out invoices via email to those that would need to receive them from the system, such as next of kin, family members, if it's for a private fee contract, stuff like that. But now, previously it was just that you could only add in one email address per account, but now you can see there's an extra box there to add in a CC, where you can add multiple email addresses in there as well. So the main email address, say, is always going to be one in there, but the email address CC can have multiple. So if I were to add one in there, the way you do it is obviously add in the email address and separate it, similar how you would with actually writing an email. You put in a semicolon in there, and then you can type in the second email address in it there. So it should like it. Let's try that again. So yeah, you would do it like that, and then that means that when you send out the email invoice from CoolCare, it will CC in those that have been set up in the CC as well. So that way you can send out an email invoice to multiple people if you had multiple sources that need to know about the invoices that have been sent from the system, like multiple family members for a resident or things like that. You can set them all up in there with the CC option. That's there available if you need it. Again, main thing to remember is the invoice email address will be the main one, and that's just the one email address in there. But then the CC can have multiple people in. Just remember to separate them with a semicolon when you're adding them in, similar to how you would when it's done with a regular email. Those are the few little changes made to CoolCare to be able to update things like I say, as we go. Those more recent changes. And with that, we do have a question that's come up. So to shift things over to the kind of Q&A side of things, we have a question come in. Again, for anyone that's joined us recently, just now, you can use the Q&A option on Zoom to ask any questions you've got. This will be more of an open Q&A now, as I've shown you the new stuff from the updates. We do have one question that's come in first. How do you schedule your week to run from Sunday to Saturday? Helping to see the hours assigned staff accurately within a week. Well then, that would be done on the rotor side of things. So when you first set up your rotor in CoolCare, on your rotor setup, can't show it on mine quite here, but when you first create the rotor, or if you're coming to actually change it in here, you can actually update it in this settings button at the top, where you can change what's called your rotor start date. This is essentially saying kind of what would be week one, day one of your rotor, and essentially what day of the week your rotor shift patterns and everything would start from in there. So mine's currently set to a Monday, as you can see in there, Monday the 10th. But if we needed to run the rotor from Sunday to Saturday, you can change that in there to a Sunday. That way, week one, day one of your rotor is then Sunday, and it's going to run through to the Saturday of, in this case, week two on mine before going back to the start of it. So you can change it in there, and that will then update all your shift patterns in the save it in here, and that will update the draft version. Then for it to go live, you then need to apply those changes for it to take effect on your live rotor in there. So if I apply the changes on here, rotate to first shift, do it as early as I can to make it take effect right away. That will then update on my staff rotor here. And if we have a look at that now from there, if I go to Sunday, that is now day one of my shift pattern. So you can see, for example, one of the shift patterns I had was a 4-day shift pattern set up from week one, day one. So you can now see how that goes from the Sunday and then 3 days off and back to the 4 days on there. So you can change the start date on your rotor setup and then apply those changes for it to take effect on your live rotor, and that will affect it on there. Let me just double check one other thing as well. Yeah, that's fine. That's how you would do that. And then when you come to actually print off the rotor, you can print it from whatever day you like. So if you set the start date on there to a Sunday on the rotor here, You can then print that off, and if I print that, whichever way I do it, it will give me the weeks there, Sunday to Saturday, as you can see. And that's give me 1 week. There we are, that's better. But yeah, you can see how your weeks in there run Sunday to Saturday as long as you do it based on the date you've got selected in the top left corner there. So you can print off the rotor and you can set up the rotor shift patterns to run from there like that. Yeah, that's how you would handle running your rotors in the system there Sunday to Saturday. Just remember, change it in the rotor setup and then remember to apply those changes so it takes effect on the live one. That's I've had another question come in. When a staff member puts in a cover request, is there a way this can ping a message as currently can't tell when they've asked without going into the cover request tab regularly? Fortunately, CoolCare doesn't have any kind of messaging or notification options like that. It would just be, as you mentioned there, using those cover requests. So on the rotor here, the cover request button there will tell you about any shifts that staff members have put in a request for. This will also show you any that have come in from the staff portal or through the staff messaging. If you text a staff member asking to cover a shift and they respond to it, I'll just show you an example here for those that might not be used to it. Can message a staff from there, and then that will then appear in the cover request box there. He says it should. We'll just reload the rotor. There we are. Did I choose a past dates? I might choose the wrong date. Let's try again on that one. Message him. That's more like it. Yep, you'll be able to see it in there. So you do have to check that to see if people have responded to it. At the moment, you can see it says there the one awaiting, so they've not responded to it yet. But once the staff member does respond, if I just do it on my mobile here, that will then come through onto the shift and onto the recovery requests there. As I say, it doesn't have any notifications or messages to let you know that people have responded. That's why it is important to keep checking those cover requests, and you can reload that at any time to then see how it's changed on there. So that's now gone to one can cover. And if I check that on the shift itself, we should then see it's now got it in there to say that green tick to say yes, they can cover that shift and tell me exactly when they've covered it on there as well. So while say there isn't any notification or anything that would come from it, it is just an easy way to keep track of that cover request. Remember, on your rotor, use that box there and keep an eye on them from that. And once the shift is covered, as you can see there, it does then disappear. So it's not like it's going to get clogged up with stuff. Once you've sort of assigned someone to the shift or once it's past that date as well, it'll not show up in the cover requests from there. Yes, that answers your question in that. In that case, no other open questions right yet, but we'll give it a see if anyone's got other questions. Now your time's to ask. I'll give you a couple of minutes for you to type up any other questions people might have. You can do it on there. Yeah. Follow-up has come through, asking us to do the same cover request. How far advance can you check? It only shows a week at a time. It should show you essentially for all the shifts you look at on the rotor. So by default, when the rotor opens up, we'll look at from today's date up to the next 4 weeks in there. So any requests that go in within those 4 weeks should show up. So if I were to send a request for, up to the 18th of December, for example, and then we'll use that same staff member if I can find him. Where are they? There with me. There they are. And again, as long as the request is within kind of what you're looking at on the rotor, if I then use a cover request, you can see that shows up on there. You can see from there. So yeah, as far as I know, as far as advance, you should be able to check as far as you need to, as long as it's kind of on the rotor that you're looking at for the next 4 weeks, I believe. I know there is a limit to how many shifts can show up on there in a single go. So if you're sending out a lot of messages or have a lot of requests come through, it might be that you need to essentially get rid of some of them by assigning people to shifts before more can show up on there. I believe it can only show so many at a time with that. If you say you can't see too far ahead, it might be because you've got too many on there now that need covering before you can see the rest. But if you change your start date, it should shift it forward to be able to see just the ones from the date you're looking at from in there. So if you don't want to look at the ones for this week and go to next week, just change your start date on there to next week, and then you'll just see the ones for next week and beyond from there. That'd be the way to do it with that. Yeah, as you can see, that one for 4 weeks from now has appeared on mine. So yeah, as long as it's within kind of your view of your rotor, you can see them all on there. Just remember, it can only show so many at a time if you do it on there. Again, we'll give it another couple of minutes in case anyone has any further questions. While you're thinking of any other questions we might have, just use this time to mention, of course, that anyone may have further training available to you guys, alongside, of course, our regular webinars we do. If you're interested, you could email us training@coolcare.co.uk and we can check what training is available to you. You might have some available free of charge as part of your CoolCare subscription. We do have every customer that has available two kind of 30-minute sessions that you can use for a Q&A like this. It could be for focusing on any part of the system you want to know about, or even just a refresher on CoolCare for whatever it might be, for new starters in your company or anything like that. You can, say, get in touch with us. Just email training@coolcare.co.uk. We can check your availability, and if you're interested, get something booked in for you. So we'll give it another minute or so, see if anyone has any further questions you could think of. Now is your time to ask. Well then, seems if everyone's all questioned out already, then we can wrap up for today. Just before we do finish though, of course, if you need extra help on CoolCare, there's plenty of places you can check. Firstly, if you click in the top right corner on the system menu there, you'll find plenty of user guides on all parts of the system. Anything you want to know about, you can find in there. We've got plenty of written guides on all parts of the system and stuff to find out on there, as well as our video guides, the masterclasses we do regularly about all sorts of parts of the system you can find in there as well. So anything you need, you can have a look through those. And they're always kept up to date with any new updates to the system, of course, as well. Or within CoolCare itself, if you need any additional help, click the bubble in the bottom left corner of the system, and you can open up the live chats. That is available to speak with our support team. Any questions you have or any issues you come across, you can get some help from there, and they can assist you with that. As well as that, though, just to mention, finally, where is it? There we are. Support team are also available via phone. You can call them up 0113 385 3853 and they can assist you with any queries you've got. So they'll be available office hours Monday to Friday 9 to 5, or you can email them support@coolcare.co.uk. On that. For any queries regarding your account or subscription to CoolCare, you can email our customer success team as well on there. And for any further interest in training, as I mentioned before, you can email us training@coolcare.co.uk to see about your training entitlements. You might have some free of charge sessions available to use for anything you want to know about on CoolCare. We can get something booked in for you as well. Yes. In that case, I say thank you all for joining me today. I hope that has been useful for everyone. And if you need any extra help from us, you know how to get in touch with everyone on there. So, yeah. Thank you all for joining me today. Have a nice rest of your day, everyone. Since it's Friday, have a nice weekend as well. Thank you all for coming.